In the 1960s, Black America had a financial code so airtight that banks didn't know whether to study it or destroy it. Entire neighborhoods were debt-free, not because they were wealthy, because they had figured out something the system never wanted them to learn: how to say no. I'm Big Bertha, and tonight we're pulling back the velvet curtain on a secret that starts with sharecropping, ends with your wallet, and rewires everything you think you know about money. To understand the code, you have to understand the trap. After the Civil War, sharecropping promised freedom, but delivered a leash. The landowner held the ledger. He set the prices for seed and tools. And every harvest, the math said the same thing: you owe more than you earned. Debt wasn't just poverty, it was bondage. And that trauma got passed down like DNA. Then came the maps. In the 1930s, the government colored Black neighborhoods red. Banks followed those lines like bloodhounds. Mortgages denied, business loans denied. The GI Bill built the white middle class. But in Mississippi in 1947, only 2 Black veterans out of 3,000 got a VA home loan. 2. By 1960, only 38% of Black families owned homes. Compare that to 64% of white families. But here's the psychological twist: being locked out of credit didn't break them, it forged them. They learned what the system never intended to teach. Debt was danger, cash was power, and patience was a weapon. They didn't just survive exclusion, they built a fortress around their families. Using discipline the banks couldn't penetrate, so they built a shield, dollar by dollar. Fathers saved for months, sometimes years, to pay cash for a used car. Mothers hid money in coffee cans, behind flour sacks, under loose floorboards. When a man counted out wrinkled bills at the dealership, he wasn't just buying a car. He was buying something invisible: the right to say, "Nobody owns me." Every household had its own bank. The kitchen drawer was sacred. On payday, Mama sat at the table and divided cash into envelopes: rent, groceries, lights, church, savings. If the grocery envelope ran low, you ate what was in the house. You did not borrow from rent. You did not plead for credit. Credit was a trap, and mothers knew it better than anyone. Those envelopes were worn and reused month after month. Each crease told a story of careful management. And when an envelope emptied before payday, that wasn't a crisis. That was a warning. You waited. Because patience wasn't punishment. It was protection. The empty envelope was a boundary, not an invitation to spend what you didn't have. For bigger purchases, they didn't swipe. They walked to the layaway counter at Sears or JCPenney. A winter coat in August, a bicycle in September, small payments week after week until the item was yours. No interest, no credit checks, no fear. And when you finally carried that package home, it belonged to you entirely. Christmas clubs worked the same magic. Deposit a little every Friday at the credit union, get the full sum in November. By December, gifts were paid for. January arrived with no crushing holiday debt. The passbook wasn't just paper. It was proof that waiting brought its own reward. That joy didn't require a loan. But the real genius, the Susu. 10 trusted women, $20 each. One takes home $200 this week. Next week, someone else. No bank, no credit check, no interest, just trust. Rooted in West African tradition, these rotating savings circles moved through Detroit and Southern kitchens. Miss a payment and you didn't face collections. You faced your neighbors. That was accountability no app can replicate. And when cash was tight, the neighborhood became an economy. The mechanic fixed brakes for a basket of tomatoes, the seamstress hem pants for collard greens. A woman who could braid hair or bake a cake traded talent instead of begging for loans. Barter kept money in pockets and dignity intact. It built bonds that outlasted any contract. The church wasn't just worship, it was infrastructure. Sunday offerings funded emergency groceries, rent, and funeral costs. Deacons visited quietly, The pastor knew who was struggling. No applications, no interest, just the understanding that everyone would need help eventually. Sermons called debt a shackle. The church offered a way to stay free. It was mutual aid with no fine print. When white insurers refused coverage or charged brutal rates, Black entrepreneurs built their own. North Carolina Mutual, Atlanta Life. Agents walked door to door collecting dimes for burial policies. The premium stayed in the community. And when hard times came, the payout wasn't a favor. It was a promise kept within the family. Self-determination, one dime at a time. Refusing to owe white establishments wasn't stubbornness. It was strategy forged in trauma. Sharecropping had taught them that owing the wrong people meant vulnerability. Many families simply said no. They saved until they could pay cash, or they did without. This wasn't deprivation. It was resistance. It was refusing to rebuild the chains their ancestors had broken. Ownership meant everything. A home paid off in a few years. A car driven until it died. The goal wasn't the newest or the flashiest. It was the deed in your hand with no lien. Nobody could repossess it. Nobody could call it in. Owning outright was generational armor. They lived below their means on purpose. Even when income rose, spending stayed humble. The gap between what you made and what you spent became a cushion, not for display, for security. Children learned that true wealth wasn't about impressing strangers. It was about sleeping soundly. And that gap was freedom disguised as empty space. Marriage was an economic partnership. Husbands and wives pooled every dollar, no his money or her money. Major purchases required agreement. This prevented impulse and built trust. Children watched and learned that financial success was a team sport requiring communication and shared sacrifice. 3 generations under one roof wasn't failure. It was a fortress. Rent, utilities, and groceries split 3 ways. Grandparents provided social security. Older children handed over paychecks. Built-in childcare eliminated daycare costs entirely. When someone got sick or lost a job, the household absorbed the blow. Debt couldn't penetrate walls that thick. Collective strength over individual struggle. Backyards fed families. Collards, tomatoes, okra, beans, chickens for eggs, and Sunday dinner. Growing food wasn't a hobby. It was independence you could taste. Sewing machines were prized possessions. Mothers made curtains, dresses, and Sunday shirts from fabric bought on sale or salvaged. When store-bought clothes tore, they were mended. Fabric scraps became quilts. The ability to create and repair meant new clothes weren't a seasonal requirement. They were a craft that kept money home. Nothing was thrown away simply because it was worn. Fathers spent weekends fixing appliances, patching roofs, keeping old cars running with pure ingenuity. A washing machine lasted 20 years because someone knew how to replace a belt. Maintenance was respect for what you worked hard to obtain. Clothes moved like heirlooms. Older cousins shipped boxes across state lines. Mothers altered hems and patched knees. Nothing wearable was thrown away. Hand-me-downs stretched budgets further than seemed possible. The neighborhood watched. Flashy spending you couldn't afford. People noticed. Owing money while living large. Your reputation crumbled. This wasn't gossip. It was informal accountability. Children learned that how you handled money reflected on your whole family. Grandmother's rules were commandments. Save before you spend. If you can't pay cash, you can't afford it. Always put something aside before you touch your paycheck. These weren't suggestions, they were survival law written in kitchen light. Patience was the secret weapon that credit cards would later destroy. When you wanted something, you saved for it. No instant gratification, no swiping now and worrying later. The waiting made the owning meaningful. Black families in the 1960s understood that patience wasn't delay. It was a filter that kept bad decisions out. Then came the flood, the late 1960s. Factories shuttered, neighborhoods gasped, and into that void, credit cards arrived. Instant approval, no money down. The old code said wait. The new system said now, and now was a trap. The safety nets frayed. Churches had more families needing help than giving. What was once a badge of pride Living debt-free started to feel like a luxury nobody could afford. The system didn't break the code by being smarter. It broke it by removing the jobs that made the code possible. Today, consumer debt in Black communities sits at record highs. Payday lenders crowd out the old susu circles. Buy now, pay later apps have replaced layaway, except now you get the item before it's paid for, and the interest owns you. But here's the conspiracy they don't want you to consider. That code wasn't a fluke. It was a blueprint. Proof that financial resilience doesn't require perfect conditions. It requires community, patience, and the radical idea that you can say no to a system designed to profit from your hardship. The envelope system still works. The susu still works. The patience still works. The question isn't whether the code matters today. It matters more than ever. The question is, who has the power to remember? And who profits if you forget? Because every time you swipe now and pay later, somebody is counting on you to stay owing, but you come from people who knew better. Big Bertha out. Stay free.